particular Sunday link?
So I have no way of determining what the link is. Like, I think if they go to your YouTube, they will see that it's live because it's public. But what I am going to do right now is, so right now it is streaming. I am going to click live. Okay. Yeah. We lost you there. Yeah. Okay, it's working when you click the Watch Sunday link. Thank you very much, Jennifer.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
So we're good. We're on YouTube. Perfect.
Could I just ask, I'm sorry, I've never actually joined on YouTube. So I see where it says live on YouTube. Do I click here? Do I get out altogether and go back to first? And I mean, I don't know how to actually join on YouTube.
What do you want to do? You're here right now.
Okay. So I'm okay where I am.
Yes. No. Are you a member?
No, she's not.
No.
Well, then you shouldn't be here.
Well, I'm trying to sort that out. Yeah.
Okay, well,
leave.
all right.
Let's leave.
Yeah.
The link is in the chat now.
Yeah. So you can click the link, open it up, and then leave the Zoom meeting would be the best way.
Okay. So I go into chat and then I can connect that.
Yeah.
way. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm not too techie. That's my issue here, but
Janine, honestly, all this stuff changes all the time, so it's okay.
We're not killing anybody. It's just it's tech.
Just left.
Ken?
Hi there.
Oh, gee.
That was a quick turnaround.
Yeah. Would you like to sit over here?
Doesn't matter, wherever my leg won't get in the way. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
How many are we?
Well, we might be 5, so we're gonna put this over here. Hello, Calvin.
Hi.
Can you hear me? It's Nancy.
Oh, hi, Nancy.
Yeah, we have 5 people here. Would you like to see them?
That's wonderful.
We
that's
have
great.
Ann Murdoch.
Where am I?
Can you see? Here, you're backlit. We have Ann Murdoch. We have
Hi, Ann.
Ellen Campbell.
Hi, Ellen.
Hi.
We have Terry.
Hey, Terry.
Yeah. And we have Wendy Unpu.
Hello, Wendy. That's fabulous.
So there are
I don't know
5,
where I am.
5 voting members here.
Thank you so much for arranging this. It's lovely to see you all.
Is that at Christie Gardens?
Yes.
It is.
Thank you.
Just going to put you on mute while we get all set up here, Nancy.
Yes, good. We don't have to pay.
I better mute, right.
Donald Cole.
Okay, it does not appear that there's a big lineup in the waiting room at this point, so I am going to ask Lynn to begin.
Thank you, Karen. It is indeed 12:30 Eastern Time, and so it is my great joy and honor to open this meeting for the purposes of voting to purchase the property recommended by the board and the Real Estate Task Force. This is a significant moment in the life of our congregation, and I thank you all for being with us today, whether you're joining us on Zoom as voting members or present with us on YouTube to share in this very meaningful occasion. It is good to be together. And now I'd like to invite you to join me in our chalice lighting words, lighting a chalice or a candle if you have one handy, and we will join in saying our chalice lighting words together. As we light our chalice, may its flame kindle within us the warmth of compassion, the glow of love, the fire of commitment, and the light of truth.
Thank you, Lynn. And now I'm going to invite Chris Lee, one of our board members, to offer the territorial acknowledgement.
Hello, everyone. For today's land acknowledgement, I'm going to share an adaptation of the Indigenous Context Brief, which was written for the inaugural Toronto Biennial of Art in 2019 by artist Ange Loft, who is from Kahnawake Gehagwa territory. Toronto has been a popular place for a while. It is the site of many rivers that have been built over. Partial excavations reveal several older villages and burial places across the city, all of which has been turned over for new developments. These hidden layers tell the story of shifting populations going back to 1000 of the Common Era. Every time a condo goes up, they have to dig down. Exploring the changes in our city means we must also examine our foundations. How many nations within our city remain in relation with one another? What agreements and arrangements do these nations have with respect to sharing resources, space, and differences in worldviews? How do we show mutual respect for autonomy and maintain order? Our territory has seen two drastically different approaches to these questions: the dish with one spoon and the Toronto Purchase. The dish with one spoon outlines an approach to sharing land between nations. The agreement has brought many regional Indigenous nations, including the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee, into relationship under guiding principles of mindfulness. Take only what you need, keep the dish clean, make sure there is something left in the dish for the future. The agreements for this territory were not made quickly. They took time, with representatives returning to their respective communities to discuss further before coming back together for more talk. The idea of returning to agreements is foundational. Oral knowledge was maintained by restating, relearning, and carrying these forward ideas to next generations. But this city became a city fast. In 1787, the British gave the Mississaugas of the credit what was even then very little money: 2,000 gunflints, 24 brass kettles, 120 mirrors, 24 laced hats, a bale of flowered flannel, and 96 gallons of rum, and began to talk about sharing land. This interaction became known as the Toronto Purchase. The land supposedly ceded to the British were not recorded accurately. A line was drawn up by the British from Etobicoke Creek to Ashbridges Bay and all the way up to Newmarket, outlining a much larger plot of land than what had originally been understood. The city expanded over these unclear boundary lines, encroaching on portions of the land along the rivers that had been reserved for the sole use of the Mississaugas. As our skyline shifts to make way for taller buildings, we need to develop a keener sense of the historical relationships they are built upon. The negotiations between the nations on this territory and the governance mechanisms that have regulated relations on these lands. What does it mean to be in relation? Being in relation takes time, energy, and investment to learn what is in between, what holds us up, and what keeps us together. Those in-between things are not only roads and buildings, but the foundational understandings that have allowed Toronto to be here. And so with this, I want to acknowledge the Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, Anishinaabe, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit for stewarding this land. And today, Toronto is home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. And may we endeavor to respect the continued connections with the past, present, and future, and our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within the Toronto community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. At this moment, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Like I'm tearing up already, it's ridiculous. I also will declare a quorum. We have just about 300 voting members now, and we have well over 100 voting members here. Our quorum is 10%. We are well in excess of that. So we are now officially in our formal meeting. I would also like to point out that our normal procedures for voting would require that at least half of the voters present provide their approval to pass any motion. Today, in the case of this historic decision, the board has decided to require that at least 2/3 of the voting members present provide their approval for today's special motion. Now I'm going to ask Bill Dunk-Green, our parliamentarian for today, to draw your attention to the rules of order.
Hi, folks. So these are the rules of order for congregational meetings. They're intended to make clear what is happening in a meeting at all times. They explain how to participate in discussion, to vote on a motion, request an amendment to a motion, or for clarification or assistance. The chairperson, Karen, is responsible to conduct the meetings in an organized way that covers the business at hand and allows reasonable time for diverse voices to be heard before motions are voted upon. I advise the chairperson if there is need to interpret on the rules of order. So there's 6 things that we need to quickly cover off. One is main motions. Main motions are made to request agreement that certain actions be taken or to adopt official policy on an issue. They need a mover and a seconder before they can be discussed. When discussion is complete, the chairperson confirms that everyone is ready to vote and repeats the word of the motion, after which the vote takes place. If the motion is amended, it is not voted on until the amendment itself is voted on. Amending motions and sub-amendments. Amendments can be made to clarify a motion, i.e. by changing, adding, or deleting words, but not to negate a motion. They need a mover and a seconder, followed by discussion before the vote on the amendment is called by the chair. A sub-amendment can be made to the proposed amending motion to further clarify the amendment. It needs a mover and a seconder, followed by discussion before the vote is called by the chair. There can be no amendment to a sub-amendment. Motion to end debate. Normally the chair will end discussion of a motion when with a call for a vote, but if you feel the debate has gone on long enough and is becoming frivolous, you can make a motion to end the debate. The motion is made in the form, I move that the question be now put. The motion needs a seconder and cannot be amendment and needs 2/3 vote to carry. Point of privilege. If someone is preventing your participation, you can interrupt by saying, Madam Chair, point of privilege, and then explain your concern. This is only to deal with matters related to a motion on the floor, and the chair must listen to your concern and make a determination. There is no seconder, discussion, or vote. Point of information. If you're confused about something, or if you feel a previous comment of yours is being misconstrued, you may interrupt the meeting and say, Madam Chair, point of information, and then explain what is confusing you and ask for clarification. The chair must listen to your concern and make a determination. There is no seconder, discussion, or vote. Finally, point of order. If you notice something is out of order, discussion has begun on a motion before it has been seconded, or matters already been voted on and discussion is closed, you may interrupt the meeting by saying, Madam Chair, point of order, and then discuss your observation or concern. The chair must listen to your point and make a determination. There's no seconder, discussion, or vote. And that's about it. Those are the rules. I'm going to turn it over to Calvin, and Calvin is going to give you a little refresher on Zoom and how to operate it.
Thank you very much, Bill. And here we come to the exciting part where we review how to raise our hands electronically in a meeting. Those of you that were here last week will have painstakingly gone through this, but we're going to repeat it for the sake of people that are joining us today for the first time. The way that we communicate that we wish to speak in the meeting is by raising a hand. Now, because of the over 130 people in the meeting, we can't watch the little windows to see who's physically raising their hand, we ask you to raise your hand electronically. And the way that you do that depends on what kind of a device you're using. If you're using a Windows computer or a Mac, you need to get to the control panel. And you do that by moving your mouse around, and that'll bring up the control panel at the bottom of your screen. And that has the mute and the stop video and all those other key functions. And one of those functions should be a reactions button. And if you click on reactions, you should see a number of little icons, including a button that says raise hand. Now, if you're on an iPad or an iPhone or an Android phone, you may need to tap your screen to bring up the control panel, and you may not have a reactions tab. You'd have to click on the More button, which is the 3 little dots, and that brings up additional menu items for you. And there you should have the ability to raise hand. And finally, if you're on a phone, if you press *9 on your phone, you will actually be able to raise your hand as well. So I'm going to ask everybody to do that now on the device that they're on, to find the reactions button. If you're on an older version of Zoom, you might have to click on the participants button. A word of caution, make sure you're clicking on raise hand and not the clapping symbol or the thumbs up symbol or any of the other buttons. It says explicitly raise hand. So with that being said, just going to scroll through, and I'm seeing many, many, many hands raised. So get to the bottom here. And there are a few people who have not raised their hands. We probably got about maybe 15, 20 people, Karen, that have not raised their hands. So I'm going to ask that everyone does pay attention and do this, because this is going to be your key method for participating in the discussion and also in the vote.
Okay, well, I think we've provided the instruction that you can, Calvin. And so for anyone who might be struggling, is there a place where they can contact anyone in the background?
Yeah, I think there's an email in First Light. And if they send an email message to that, then someone will try and reach to them. But we can't, unfortunately, we can't do any technical PC troubleshooting or anything like that. We can just help people find things in Zoom.
Right. Okay.
Great. And so just one further point, and thank you everybody for raising your hands. I'm going to lower everybody's hand right now. If during the proceedings, as Bill mentioned, you need to raise a point of order, you do that by raising your hand, of course, but then unmute your microphone and call out point of order, and we'll immediately take your question or your point. And with that, I'll pass on back to Karen.
Thanks very much, Calvin. So as this is an official meeting, I'm going to share with you the agenda, and we will have a vote to approve the agenda. So let me do this. Okay. So our agenda for today is, we've done the opening procedures. We will have a motion to approve the agenda.
I'm not on the phone.
Can we put anybody on mute, please? There we go. Thank you. We are going to do some presentations to the due diligence that have come in the last week about this property. And there will be an opportunity for questions and comments on that material. We'll have enough time to have Q&A or any final comments on all of the material, but we won't be reviewing everything that we reviewed on the 12th. Today will be a short recap, some updates, and then we will move to the main motion, the reason that we're gathered today to make a decision. And there will be some closing procedures as well and some closing words. So this is our agenda for today. I will stop share that just so, well, I guess I won't stop share it for a moment, but we need to call a vote on this. The motion to approve the agenda is coming from the board. So in this case, it does not need to be seconded. Is there any discussion from anyone about this agenda? Anyone have any questions or concerns? If you do, please raise your hand. Okay, we'll just give a heartbeat for that. It appears that we have no questions on the agenda, so I will call the motion. And so this is your first opportunity to practice the hand raise, or your next opportunity to practice the hand raising. All in favor, please raise your hand. Just waiting for those to come in. Okay, I'm going to give it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then we will call that. So then, Calvin, are you going to lower everybody's hands, or are we asking them to do it? We need everybody to lower their hand now. So in the same place that you have a hand raise function, you actually have a hand lower function after you've done it. And I can see
Karen, I did click on the lower all hands as well.
Okay, it doesn't seem to be happening. There we go. Okay, it's a little delayed. Thank you. Okay, so I need to call for any opposed. Let's see if we have any hands raised for that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and any abstentions? Please raise your hand if you are abstaining. Okay, so we have 120 votes in favor, and I think the rest are people who are somehow struggling with getting the hand raise function to work. Wendy, do you have a question, or is that a late vote arriving?
A late vote.
Okay, in favor or opposed or abstaining?
In favor.
In favor,
Sorry.
thank you.
I'm
Okay.
attending a birthday party, sorry.
Oh, okay, all right. So I'll ask you to lower your hand now then, Wendy. So you can see that there's a little bit of delay. We'll make sure that people have time when we get to the main motion, but it does work. Okay, thank you. So for the presentation, I am going to go back to sharing. Sorry. All right. I will go back to my slides. This is just a reminder from last couple of meetings. You will recall that we are still sort of in a zone where this material is confidential and is really only able to be talked about among us. And so a reminder to please respect that. I'm going to give a brief overview of the due diligence that we have done on this property. And a lot of it was talked about last week, but there are a couple of new pieces of information. I hope that if you were not able to be here last week, you were at least able to read the package that we sent out. So key questions in due diligence again are, is there really anything that would prevent us from using the site the way we wish to use it? And can we afford financially to create a new home at this site? And then there are all of these different areas of questioning that we can do about a property to try and answer those questions responsibly. Structure. So I'm just going to go through these very quickly with some key points. So for the structure, we have confirmed that the building is big enough and it's in good condition. The location is central enough and it has high visibility in its neighborhood. It's also a very good location in terms of transit. I do have updates on city planning approvals and on titles, so I'll skip those for now. We have reviewed the leases for the current tenants, and we know that they're prepared for the possibility already of having to leave the building. And when we're able to meet with them, we'll discuss what might be possible in terms of them returning to the building after our renovation and renting with us again. That's all a big open question at this point, but whatever works out, it's fine either way. We think the design of the building is already pretty appealing, and it's got a lot of big open spaces. It has reasonably high ceilings, and we know that our renovation plans can make it very attractive and functional. And of course, we will be bringing our colored glass. No question about that. The neighborhood is lively and diverse in terms of homes and businesses, cultures, and economic levels. It is growing and changing and getting some attention based on a new transit route, the LRT station coming nearby, and a desire to protect the cultural heritage of the area. So this bodes well for things happening in this space. The neighborhood is safe in the same way that all of Toronto can be said to be safe, which, as we learned in last week's discussion, is a more nuanced statement than we sometimes acknowledge. Feeling safe can be as much about who you are and how you look as it is about where you are, or anything that you can predict from crime statistics. And if you want to look at crime statistics, you'll see that there's no cause to worry about street crime here any more than anywhere else. If you want to consider the bigger question of why people can or can't feel safe wherever they are, then I'd say we're all in a good place right here in this congregation. For ecological considerations, we see lots of potential in this property, and our green team has a great list of ideas which we can investigate and invest in as we are able when the time comes. And we're very pleased to find a property where we believe we can meet our goals of providing accessible spaces for everyone. The plan already includes 2 elevators, as well as ramps and bathrooms, and that we know that there are certainly more details that would have to come into the design when we get to that. Moving on to some areas where I need to give you updates. So legal searches, this was not quite done when we met the last time, and there still is one small outstanding item. But first, the only real item of discussion when our lawyer went through of all of this was an easement on the property. And so we showed you the last time that there is an easement or a laneway on the south end of the property, and it's next to the neighboring home. Both the owner of that home can put their car in their driveway there, and we have a walkway where we can walk from Oakwood to the other street on the other side, Robina. So that is an official easement, which also might be known as an encumbrance because it might create some restrictions on things that can be done there. Other than that, our lawyer hasn't found anything to worry about, except to say that the search on Toronto Hydro unregistered easements isn't complete. So it is theoretically possible that Toronto Hydro might have a right to be somewhere on the property, but we're not changing the shape of the property or the shape of the building anyway, so that should not be a concern. As far as the other easement goes, whoops, let me go back up there. As far as the other easement goes, we could certainly continue to use the walkway, even if there were some issues about whether our half of it and the other half of it somehow had to be treated differently at some point in time. We have no intentions of building out onto the walkway and changing the footprint of the building. So it does seem that there is very little reason to worry about this particular easement. And we are looking for more information, if we can find it, about any of the details of the legal agreements around it. So we don't consider any of this to be a red flag or a showstopper in any way. And then the remaining piece of due diligence that we worked on last week was meeting with the city, so the city planning department, and also with the city councilor's office. Both of those meetings went very well. We had very positive feedback with offers of ongoing assistance and support from the representatives we met with from Josh Matlow's office, and also from the people we met with in city planning. All of those people expressed excitement and a real interest in the community space that we will be able to provide. And they said that they would welcome us and our plans for the building. They've expressed confidence, but they can't give guarantees that the variances that we would need for our renovation project would be acceptable by the city's other departments once they were reviewed and once we explained what we were trying to accomplish and why. So that's from the city councillor and the city's planning department themselves. We also had a planning consultant who does this work with us and have their own discussions and do their own investigations to determine whether there were any red flags or issues around our plans. And so the report that we have from that consultant describes the likelihood of approvals and also gives us some more insight into the process and the timelines and some of the fees that need to be paid in order to get to final approvals with the city. So he confirmed that our minor variances would need to be reviewed, probably by a committee of adjustment. And if there would be objections at that level, we would then move to the Toronto local appeal body. I would note that neighborhood participation happens at the committee of adjustment level. And this is why there's always advice to talk to your neighbors and find out what your neighbors might be thinking about your proposal before you get to that committee. So these are all normal processes for these types of renovations. And in our planning consultant's report, he also expresses confidence that all of these things should be manageable and we should get the agreements that we need. There's always a risk in this. We are proceeding, or we would be proceeding, without all of these formal steps having been completed in advance. We don't have time to do that. We think the risk of anything being wrong with all of this is very low because of all of the input we've received already. It's definitely going to take time to get more professionals and get the stakeholders involved to get to the detail that's required to go to a committee of adjustment and get approval. And so that might take longer than we'd like, depending on how it goes. And there is always a remote possibility that we would have to change something about our plans. But we believe that even in a worst case scenario, we could either use the building just fine with a changed plan, or full transparency, somebody last time said, well, what if we had to just abandon? Well, then we would own a very valuable piece of real estate in a growing part of the city. And even though it's not our mission to be speculators in real estate, that probably would work out okay. It would be a great big pain and it would take a lot of time out of our plans, but we don't see that there is a dangerous worst case scenario here. So the expected risks can be managed and there are no showstoppers. Okay, so that is the summary of the updates. The other final part of the due diligence, which I haven't mentioned, of course, is the costing.
Karen, sorry to interrupt. I just wondered if you wanted to take questions now or wait till the end of this section.
I'm just going to do the finance part and then I'm going to take questions.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Calvin. So on the finance side of things, we've worked with our architect and our cost consultant to come up with high-level estimates of the cost of the renovations that we'd like to do and the cost of all the other consultants and service providers and fees and so forth that it takes to get this work done. And in these estimates, we've included over $1.2 million in contingency, meaning we have that much money put aside to cover the cost of things that have been estimated at one level, but what if they ended up costing a little bit more? So that is there. The estimated total of everything, including the contingency, comes to $14.8 million. The wallet that we have from the sale of our building, after we've put aside some money that we want to reserve for future investment funds, comes to $14.7 million.
Can we advance the slide?
Oh, sorry. I actually don't have a slide on the finance, Greg, thanks. But it was in the old deck and I actually didn't think of putting it in here. So I don't have a visual for you, but we're talking about a cost of about 14.8 million and a wallet of about 14.7 million. That puts it in the range that we can work with. And it might be obvious, but I need to say out loud, that of course, any of the prices and the estimates around all of this could vary a bit. Some things may go up, some things may go down. There is a risk element on the finance side of things too, but this is definitely within the range that we've been looking for all along. And we think that we can manage any changes by making smart choices as we go along. All of these costs don't arrive at once, obviously, and we can make choices as we go, as we see where there may be some give and take needed in what we're doing. So there I will pause for questions, and I'm going to stop sharing screen and just ask, does anyone have a question about any of the new information I've given today or anything that we reviewed before? And I can see that Doug and Barbara have their hands up, but that might be a residue from a previous vote. So Doug is nodding that it's a residue, I think. Barbara, do you have a question now? Yes. Okay. So Barbara, please go ahead. We need you to unmute.
Thank you, madam. My question is about the easement, that driveway between our property and the house next door. I believe you just said that the people in the house next door could park in that driveway.
There's a driveway and a walkway.
There's a garage.
Yeah, they do.
Garage that they can park in, but can they leave a car parked in the driveway?
Yes.
I think when we talked about this last meeting, you said no. So I just want to clarify.
I don't remember that. They can have access to the garage, they can park their car there, but there's also a walkway, which is separate from the driveway, and there's plenty of room for us to walk. There would be no obstruction of the walkway if the car was there.
Okay, you just have to walk around the car to get to the...
It's actually, the car is deeper in. The car is deeper in. It's not ever going to get in our way.
When I was there, the car was right there.
Was it in the way? Okay.
That laneway.
Okay.
So so I just wanted to know. I mean, we're going to be. This is just pedestrian traffic from our standpoint anyway. We can get around the car, but that car was definitely blocking access to our walkway.
Okay. All right.
I was there.
I haven't seen them there. So yes.
It was, well, it might have just been a one-off. So
yeah, could happen.
Thank you.
And just to be clear as well, the easement or the walkway is in a place that is convenient to go from one side of the building to the other, but not required in order to reach an entrance. So you can easily get into the front entrance or the back entrance or walk through the building if that's what you're trying to do. This is an exterior place where you can move between the two sides of the building. It does have some fire exit usefulness as well, for sure. So that's there. Okay, thanks, Barb. Gilbert?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that laneways are all, you can have laneway agreements with deeds to properties. And in other words, communities that share a laneway can make agreements with all the laneway owners, or even with some of them. And that would include parking in front of sideways in front of their own garages or in front of their own entrance to properties. But it's different in every community. And you would have bumped into that during your due diligence. So if you didn't see it, it doesn't exist.
I think, thank you, Gilbert. I think that's exactly some of the additional documentation that the lawyer's hoping to find, and we haven't found yet. So we have a little lack of clarity, but not to the point where we can't use the building. Thanks, Gilbert. Stan.
Just note that with the car there, it's not an accessible laneway. There's no way you can get a chair through that spot with the car parked in the front.
Mm-hmm. They would have to go through the building.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So these are things that we can find out whether or not we can understand more how the neighbor uses it or would be willing to use it. Okay. Anybody else with a question right now? Doug.
Up to the question of confidentiality, it occurs to me that presuming we vote yes, that it would be highly desirable for the board to have a week or two or more of complete confidence continued by the congregation until you have a chance to speak to all of the tenants and maybe some of the neighbors and neighborhood associations, just so that they hear it officially.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that comment, Doug. I am going to speak to that a little bit, but yes. Okay. Gilbert, do you have a question? Or does your hand need to go back down, or you're on mute?
I'm just seconding the idea that was just expressed. It sounds like a fantastic idea and will protect us from violating our agreement with the seller.
Yes, thank you. Helen.
Yes, I have a comment, which is to say that I am in full support of this purchase, of this motion. I'd like to, it's been a long time. I've sat in many meetings over the years, more around between perhaps 2007 and 2011, a few committee on ministry meetings after that, where our real estate matters and options and choices have been discussed. It is wonderful to be at this point. I think this is a very exciting building. I think the plans for it are exciting as well. And I just wanted to mention this to you all and to congratulate the board, the real estate task force, if that is their current name still, and the staff on this and on all of your efforts to get us to this point.
Thank you, Helen. It has been a long ride.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else electronically raising their hand? Okay. So if we decide today that we're going to proceed, then we will finalize the deal with the seller tomorrow, which means we will waive all of the things that were conditional, and then we are locked into the deal just as they are already locked into the deal. The actual transfer of ownership doesn't happen until October the 20th. And then after that, we have a lot of work to do. I was going to say that the roller coaster ride, you've heard us talk about roller coaster for a long time in this process. The roller coaster ride that we've all been on may be over today, if that's what you all decide. And then we all get to jump on the tilt-a-whirl, or pick the crazy ride of your choice, right? Where our heads will be spinning with all of the choices that we're going to have to make, all of the different things that we're going to have to deal with. It will be more work, exciting work, and creative work. And so there will be lots of opportunity for people to engage in it. To the point of introducing ourselves to our neighbors, we do need a plan to do that properly, and especially approaching the tenants first, and then widening the circle and approaching people in the neighborhood. We will want our leadership team to talk about how that's going to be done. And we will not want to get ahead of ourselves on that before we have anything prepared to say that's going to present the right message to these people that we're going to be meeting for the first time, before we understand what questions we need to ask and so forth. So as Doug says, you know, it's fine after today to be able to say that we've purchased a property, but it's way too soon to be able to say anything more about what's going on. So the other thing I want to say is it's hard to predict how long some of the next steps will take, and especially how long it would take to get into the building ourselves. The approval processes can vary in how long they take and how they get scheduled. So at this point, just to manage everyone's expectations, I would urge you to think in terms of 2024, about the time when we would actually be using the building for our own programs. It could be possible that small other things could happen before then, but when you're thinking about full-blown entering the building, doing Sunday worship, everything happening there, I would think in terms of 2024. So after today's meeting, if we decide to go ahead, I think it's okay if someone asks for you to say, yes, we decided to purchase that building. And other than saying that simple thing, if anyone asks you, I would encourage you just to say, we don't know yet, we have a lot of planning to do. And then that means that even if other people want to speculate and assume things, that we're not participating in that, and we'll definitely talk to people when the time comes. I know you want to get to the motion, so do I, but before we get there, I'm going to do my thank yous in case I can't do them after. So before, oh, Barb has her hand up. Okay, Barb Wentworth.
Since you just so nicely described that it's going to take a long time, will there be a possibility for short, small group visits just to look at the existing building once we have it, so that we can kind of whet our appetites for jumping in to do the work and have a better sense of what we have actually bought?
Yes, we are starting to figure out ways that that can happen while respecting the tenants who are in the building. And so I think those opportunities probably won't happen until we've had an opportunity to talk with the tenants and gauge their comfort level with having people moving around the building at all. But there's probably ways to work that out. And we absolutely want to have people in the space as soon as we can, and in the neighborhood as soon as we can as well. Just, you know, walking around, getting to know what that area is like. Okay, thanks, Barb. Nancy, do you have a question?
There is a question from Ann Murdoch. I'm going to get computer to her.
Ann.
Hi. I wondered whether we can talk to other people about our purchase, or to neighbors or whatever, before we get a reading from the Committee of Adjustment.
We can't talk to them about anything that we plan to do with the building until then, really. Well, let me retract that. We can't say with certainty what we'll be doing with the building until we get through all of those approvals. At some point, we will want to talk to neighbors before Committee of Adjustments, so we have a sense of what it is that they would potentially object to before we get in the room with that committee. It is usually considered best to resolve those issues before getting to the Committee of Adjustment. So yes, there will be some kind of communication plan. Before then, we can still say we own the building, because we will. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Anyone else have a question before I move on?
Is Jillian involved at all?
Sorry, was that I did hear someone speak, but I wasn't sure if it was a question. If someone raises their hand, I will catch it.
I think it was Nancy unmuted.
Oh,
and now she's muted.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. So, as I said, I want to do my thank yous now before we move to the votes. I also want to give the last words to Sean, because last week I forgot to do that. Sorry, Sean. So today, Sean absolutely will have the last word. So there are obviously a ton of volunteers outside of the real estate task force as well who've been part of this work. Calvin Drake, Mo McMahon, Stan Yak, Bill Dunk Green, and Sasha Akavi, and likely others who I'm not naming who have worked on our technical processes in the past. I know we have Justice here today. We have had Matt Rideout here at some of our meetings. Thank you for making all of this happen. Tanya Cothran and now Desse Weinberger and Dana Teagle, who are the people who make First Light happen and who send out all of our last minute special messages and our amendments to our last minute special messages, all with good humor. Thank you for that. To the rest of the Board of Trustees, thank you for your questions, your trust, and for responding to the absolute avalanche of things that have been hitting your inbox in recent days and weeks. I want to personally thank Sean and Lynn for their wise counsel, of course, in task force meetings, but mostly just for looking out for all of us and making sure that we're keeping a balanced perspective about this work, and that we remember to keep living the rest of our lives, even when the to-do list seemed long and urgent and needing attention. The rest of life goes on while we're doing these things. And then, of course, our real estate task force. I want to reveal to you that the RETF, as it's usually known, has always been known to its insiders as the FRET. And you can fill in the words for FRET in various ways, but it's just easier to say fret. And we did a lot of fretting. We decided, though, that fretting was not a good public image for this committee, for you to deal with all of that fretting. We wanted to do the fretting for you, but it was quite real. And so I'm really, really happy for everybody on the committee who might be able to put aside some of the fretting for at least a little while and enjoy the fruits of our labors, however it turns out today. I want to be specific about the members of FRET. So we need to remember that this team previously included Susan Phillips, our former president, who has given so much of her time and vision to the congregation. Thank you, Susan. I think she's on an airplane right now, actually. Also, thank you to Sasha Akavi, who was on this committee and worked especially on communications for us. Thank you, Sasha. Richard Kirsch, thank you for being the person with the longest endurance record on this project, and also the deepest knowledge of how our current building works, which comes in very handy when you're trying to figure out how another building might or might not work. David Prebiff for asking skeptical and specific questions, even from your recovery bed after surgery. Greg Sutter, thank you for your thoughtful and detailed analyses and your willingness to challenge what seems like it's the majority in opinion in the room, even when you know we're really not quite done yet. That's a very important skill. And Bill Dungreen, thank you for being our human search engine who actually found this property. Bill gets bragging rights for finding this property when it wasn't really supposed to be found. And obviously also for putting up with me and always saying yes. And then finally, I want to thank all of you for coming to the meetings and participating, for holding on to your patience and your trust and your vision for FIRST while we've all been on this roller coaster ride together. For me, this has been a lot of learning about real estate, but it's been a ton of learning about us and about how we are together and about how we can be together. And I think that has been the richest part of this, despite the fact that we also have a very real decision to make today. So at this point, I will just say that the decision to approve the purchase of 473 Oakwood is all in your hands. And now I'm going to invite Nancy Lee, the chair of 2 previous task forces helping the congregation work towards this decision, to now take the floor and to make the motion.
Thank you, Karen. Well, this moment has been a long time coming. Since 2006, we've been examining our vision for ourselves as a congregation, coming to the realization that our building at 175 St. Clair really was not meeting our needs, and seeking options for a new location. Many members, including myself, have given their best efforts to bring this vision closer to reality. We've looked at dozens of options without success over the last 15 years. The present real estate task force, led by Karen, has been working for 5 years to find us a more suitable location. They have done an exceptional job. They have made a good case for why this building at 473 Oakwood Avenue is a good fit for our needs. They've used stringent criteria to make this assessment. They've done their due diligence and found no red flags. They have established that the building is one that we can afford to buy and afford to renovate. This is the moment for us to embrace the challenge of change and to make that leap into a new future. It gives me great pleasure to propose this motion. I move that the First Unitarian Congregation of Toronto purchase the property at 473 Oakwood Avenue, Toronto, to be the congregation's new home.
Thank you, Nancy. And now I'm going to invite Nicole Johnson, who joined the congregation about 1.5 years ago, and also happens to be carrying a child due in November, who will very likely be the next child. the next child to have a dedication ceremony in our congregation. So I'm going to give the floor to Nicole.
Thank you, Karen. I would like to second the motion presented by Nancy. I'm so excited to just have this transition both to motherhood and to, you know, potentially having a new space for all of us and in the community I live in as well. With all of you wonderful people in the community. And wow, thank you for inviting me to second this motion. What an honor.
Thank you, Nicole, for being with us and for making the second of that motion. So I have just put
You're on mute, Karen.
Okay, there you go. Multitasking doesn't work. Thank you, Nicole. I have just put the motion, the words of the motion in the chat as well, so that you can see them. And so now I'm going to ask if there is any discussion about this motion. Any final question or comment that anyone needs to make? Eleanor Johnston. Hello, Eleanor.
Hello. Just as Nicole's neighbor, I suppose, and another person who lives in this community, I want to say how excited I am about this motion. It's an amazing and vibrant and politically active area. And I think that we will have much to learn and also much to offer this community in a way that wasn't true of some of the other properties, as amazing a job as all you guys did. So, and I'm happy to lead guided tours if anybody wants a walk of the neighborhood. But there's lots just in terms of as a place to be in Toronto. There's so many options before and after church in the area, you know, libraries and restaurants and beautiful green spaces. So, so yay team.
Thank you, Eleanor. And I'm sure some people will take you up on the tour idea.
Yeah.
Catherine Lake.
Back. Hi. Karen and I listened in for most of the meeting last week, but we had to leave early, and so we didn't get to right to the end. But I'm just want to share, like, oh my, thank you to the team, to our leadership, to the I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that we're moving into the Oakwood community. It's so dynamic, and there's and it's, you know, economically and culturally diverse. I'm so thrilled. A little further for me to ride my bike, but I'll do the track, and I'm so happy to be with everyone on this wonderful day, and where we are taking this moment to shape our future together. Thank you to the leadership. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm glad that you're thrilled. I'm an East Ender too, just for the record. Bill and I live in Leslieville. This is a bit of a trek. It's fine. It's all good. Okay. Anyone else? All right. The moment we've all been waiting for. Oh, Gilbert. Gilbert, what do you want to tell us? You're on mute.
For some, this has been a 15-year journey, others even longer. And these long discussions and very careful and responsible contemplations just reminds me of consulting with Indigenous peoples in the Reconciliation Working Group, because this is the way that communities ally with one another, reconcile with one another, and the respect for individuals. And, you know, I'm just tearful. This is just wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert. I'm glad you're here with us. Adele, you're on mute too. There you go.
There we go. I would also like to acknowledge a subcommittee of the Real Estate Task Force that worked a couple of years ago the Accessibility Advisory Committee. And there may be others that I don't know about, but I was on that one, and I thought that it was just great, the variety of people we had and the variety of input that we had into the features that we were going to be looking at in terms of what is already there and what can be put into the new building. So I'm really happy to have contributed, and I thank all of my colleagues. And as I say, if there are other subcommittees, I thank them for all the work that they did as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Adele, for pointing that out. We did have an advisory committee focused on accessibility a couple of years ago, and we also had an advisory committee focused on ecological considerations. And so both of those teams were active then, and they will hopefully be active again, or new members will join those teams as we go forward. Thanks, Adele. Okay. Now I am going to call the vote. So we have a motion that First Unitarian Congregation of Toronto purchase the property at 473 Oakwood Avenue, Toronto. Kate, don't raise your hand to vote yet, please. Okay. I'm going to read the motion again. So please just hang on, because we have to take 3 votes, and I don't want hands raised that aren't meant to be counted for one or another. The motion is that the First Unitarian Congregation of Toronto purchase the property at 473 Oakwood Avenue, Toronto, to be the congregation's new home. If you are in favor of this vote, please raise your hand now.
Karen, I know that someone has used the clapping hands symbol
Okay.
Instead of the raised hand, if you want to
Okay.
check.
So I can include that in the count.
That has been rectified.
It's been rectified. Okay, thank you. All right, so I don't see the counter moving any further. So I'm gonna count that 133 hands have been raised for this vote.
Actually, we have to wait for the votes to come in from Christie Gardens before we can count the final vote.
Okay. And are they coming right now, or
they will come after the 3 votes?
Okay, we're gonna do all 3 at once for them. Thank you.
I can just, Karen, I can just report that all 5 of us here at Christie Gardens have voted yes.
Okay, so we have a total of 138 in favor. So now I'm going to ask for any objections, for anyone objecting to raise their hand. Okay, so I'm seeing hands go up and hands go down, possibly from people who are realizing that their hand was raised for the positive vote. And I think some things, I don't know, I think there's a lag. So right now I see 4 people voting against. And I think you can see on the screen if your hand is raised. So please take a look at your screen and see if your hand is raised. Against. Albert is taking his hand down. Margaret Vandenbroek, your hand is raised for against. Which is entirely up to you, but I just want to make sure that people really are. You're on mute.
I thought I had taken it down. Now I can't find myself.
Okay.
Margaret, I will lower the hand for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So if that's the case, I see no hands raised against. So then I'll just ask if there are any abstentions. If you are abstaining from this vote, please raise your hand. Okay, so I think our remaining number of people outside the 138 are staff, perhaps, who are not members and not voting. That looks like a unanimous yes to me.
We should all unmute and cheer.
Hooray! Woohoo! Yes. Now you get to use your clap hands function.
Yeah, clap hands.
I think there's actually a little confetti thing we can blow here. There's hearts and flowers. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I love that that was unanimous. It could have been a yes any number of ways, but for it to be a unanimous, thank you. All right. Closing words go to Sean.
Hearing a strange sound. Okay. 15 years ago, I was sitting in the parking lot of a post office in Boston, and I was reading the packet about this congregation in Toronto and intrigued that they were talking about moving to a new building. And then when I came for candidating week, I spent time meeting with members of this, the first iteration, I guess, of the real estate task force at that point. And people were really optimistic that this would come to pass in the next 2 years or so. And so I came to Toronto, I accepted the call here, assuming too that that would work out. And we've all learned a lot about real estate and about the passage of time. I'm really struck by how, and we've said this many times along the way in the process, but that, we talk about things moving at the speed of church and congregational life. That does not align very well with commercial real estate and the world of all of that swirling in Toronto. But to Gilbert's point, we have done it, and we've done it in a pandemic and on Zoom and across these many years. And so my heart is very full of gratitude for the whole congregation for coming through this with such grace and understanding and deep, deep patience, because this has been a very long roller coaster ride. And as Karen said, we now give way to another ride of pick your ride. But before we do that, and it's a moment of pausing, I just want to say deep thank yous to the many, many, many people who've been a part of this. So the current real estate team, including Richard and Bill and Greg and David, and certainly Karen, who's given such extraordinary leadership on so many levels through all of this. Karen, we will forever be in your debt, and there's nothing that we could do to properly thank you. But thank you, and I hope those flowers sitting behind you are some gesture of our gratitude. I'm also mindful of Susan and Sasha, and then Nancy and Terry Lee, Jillian Burton, John Warren, Gina Page, Keith Goronsky McNinch, and Daryl Neat, who've also had a hand at times. This has been quite the ride, and I am mindful that it has taken many, many hands to bring us together to this moment. So congratulations and deep gratitude to you all. And here we go. So I'm going to close this meeting, invite you to extinguish your chalices too if they are burning. And I'm going to leave you with words from the Canadian Icelandic minister, Emil Gudmundsson. And now may we have faith in life to do wise planting, that the generations to come may reap even more abundantly than we. May we be bold in bringing to fruition the golden dreams of human kinship and justice. This we ask, that the fields of promise become fields of reality. So may it be. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sean. I lied about last word because we didn't do the motion to adjourn.
Oh, that's true.
Despite all of my good planning and my run sheet and my speaking notes, the excitement got ahead of me. I need a motion to adjourn. Okay, Catherine's firsting it. Richard seconded it. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. I'm supposed to ask for anybody objecting. We're still getting votes in favor. I'm not going to worry about it. Margaret's shaking her head saying I don't have to worry about it, right? Okay, we have a majority who say let's adjourn. Enjoy your afternoon, everybody. There is much more work to do. Take the day off. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
I don't know who did that, but that's cool.
You're
That felt like-
welcome.
I was gonna say that felt like
It
Chad.
had to be Chad. Exactly. Yeah.
Thanks, Chad.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Take care, everybody.